Good evening and salutations, my GH fans. Let's talk about Shawn for a minute because I feel like this is pretty much his last episode. I've said this before and I'll say this again. The character was wasted from jump. Now he does sit there and, starts talking to Harmony and, kind of calls her out like, yo, you're sitting there hanging out with criminals and stuff like that. What's going on with you? And he already knew the guy who, um, she was sitting with when she was sitting there lying talking about, oh, he's just my buddy, just my drinking pal or whatever, and just kind of put her on notice by being like, yo, listen, Alexis has friends, and I don't want her getting dragged down in whatever kind of BS you got going on. And also tells TJ the same thing, like, when after he tells him that he's leaving, he's like, I want keep an eye on Alexis because Harmony can't be trusted. Now Diane comes to the office to see Alexis, and Alexis is like, "Oh, remember that hypothetical thing I was talking about as far as the birth certificate?" Diane already at this point knows that she's talking about Harmony, and she warns her to be careful. Like, "Yo, listen, she's done some good, but she still just doesn't trust her, and she thinks that Harmony is manipulating Alexis, which she thinks that she's too smart to be manipulated." And I'm like, "Yeah, okay, sure." Remember that whole thing with Julian? Yeah. Um, but Harmony gets there and Diane leaves. And Harmony's like, she tells Alexis, because Alexis is like, yo, what happened? Did you sit there and tell Willow about, everything like that? And of course, Harmony says she didn't say anything and that she didn't want to, rock her world and, cause a lot of pain and stuff like that, which is complete BS. And I really dislike when people say stuff like that. When people sit there and say, "Oh, well, I didn't sit there and tell you for your own good," I didn't want to sit there and hurt you. Whenever they sit there and say things like, "I don't want to hurt you," it's usually because they don't want to be hurt themselves. Um, but with that being said, Lex was like, "I think you should tell her, but you're not going to." And of course, she finds out that Harmony, is going to be getting a forged document, a forged certificate, a birth certificate. At this point, Lex is like, all right, well, now I know what kind of, shenanigans, what kind of, criminal stuff that you're doing. Now you're sitting there putting, her freedom in jeopardy. But despite that, she still says that she's going to rock with, Harmony. She still has her back since, Harmony was there for her. And I'm like, this is kind of a red flag. Like, a big red flag. No, you're right. Diane was, she didn't know what she was saying. And show Sean. He doesn't know what he's talking about either. So Elizabeth finally meets up with Betsy after talking to Scott, um, which is a weird. Okay, why is Liz asking Scott? Do you think that one of my boys is having a problem with me dating Finn? Like, why is she bringing that up again? Like, she was sitting there talking to Finn about it, and she says she talked to the boys about it, and none of them seemed like they had an issue. So why is she sitting there asking Scott? The same question that she seemed like she kind of got her answer for. Long story short, Scott thinks that it might be Jake. Now, she runs into Betsy, and apparently Betsy was already in town. Betsy knows that, you know, um, Liz is not there dating Finn. In a way, she said it was just very creepy. And before Liz got to really find out, like, yo, do you have a problem with me moving on or anything like that, Scott more or less kind of chases her away. Scott also brings up the fact that like it might be Betsy that's behind everything. I mean, she's been in Port Charles for who knows how long. Um, and of course, Liz gets home. She sees a painting on the wall of her. I'm assuming it's done by Franco. But I feel like Betsy would just be too obvious. Betsy would be too obvious of a choice as far as all the strange stuff that was going on with Liz. If anything, I think it will be Heather Weber, if I had to sit there and guess. Which they haven't really talked about her. And Franco's been dead for a while. So the fact that they haven't actually brought up Heather or let Heather know about Franco, it's a little kind of odd. So maybe it could be her. Now, Carly and Drew come over to see Sonny and let him know about the whole, Peter's dead. And of course, when they get to the door, they see Nina, which is awkward as hell. Nina leaves, and Carly's like, "Hey, just let you know, Peter's dead." And I'm gonna be honest, the way that Sonny seemed like he was throwing shade at Drew for like little to no reason was just like it seemed like you were cool back at the bar, like you apologized and everything. But when he got there, he kind of was just like, "Well, what are you doing here?" Pretty much. Um, but Drew leaves, and Carly finds out that Sonny has been off his meds when they bring up Don and her spending the night. He's been off his meds for a while, and this was when Carly was like, Nina knew about it. Nina, that whole yoga scene, when Nina was like, "Oh, just let Sonny needs you," and that's when Carly was like, she did that to get permission. She did that so this way she would have to feel guilty about her being the one to save Sonny and take care of Sonny. Because, in reality, if somebody's off their meds and Carly has been there for this guy for years and is probably more capable of handling him when he's in that state than you would think that, all right, cool, Nina's going to sit there and tell Carly and Carly's going to deal with it. But no, no, she did that to sit there and give herself permission to, free her guilt. And I'm going to be honest, Carly was 100% right. Um, Anyway, long story short, Nina also. Oh, I knew I forgot something. So Carly was also hurt by the fact that Sonny didn't tell her, that he was off his meds and stuff like that. And this is another one of those things where Carly was like, "You didn't trust me. You didn't trust me, for me to sit there and help you or to let me know that you were off your meds." And that was another thing that hurt her. So at this point, towards the end of the episode, they both signed divorce papers, and I'm just like, good, good, because that that needed to be over like ASAP. I mean, just for a lot of different reasons. Um, so they finally signed the divorce papers, and I was like, good. By the way, this was something that Betsy said when she was talking to Liz. She was like, "Oh, Franco had such like a hard life and stuff like that." And I'm like, you realize that Franco was like killing people, right? Like I know that it was a brain tumor or whatever, but like people are still dead. So the fact that she was like, "Oh, poor Franco," he had such a hard life, and it was like he was also killing a lot of people too. I guess we're just gonna sit there and act like that wasn't a thing. Ben was with Chase, and all they pretty much kind of did was talk about Chase and how he felt about Brooklyn. And bottom line, Chase is just like he's going to just give her time and her space, and he wants to be with her. He doesn't say it in so many words, but he wants to be with her. But he wants to sit there and make sure that she's ready because after losing Bailey or Bailey Louise, she's kind of a wreck. Also, the whole kissing thing afterwards was just awkward as hell, and it kind of seemed like she wanted to avoid the next step or even talking about it. And they probably didn't really have a lot of time because right after that, they got the call or whatever that um actually tell you the truth, I don't remember if they got the call before or after they kissed about Maxie and Peter's death or whatever, but he's not too sure. He wants to make he doesn't know how like she feels about him or whatever because, the awkward kiss or whatever. Um So that's pretty much what he was doing. We're talking about chasing his feelings towards Brooklyn. It didn't exactly really go anywhere. Um, it seemed like it was just mostly filler. I mean, this episode seemed like it was mostly filler in general, but that scene really seemed like it was filler. Oh, and I forgot, Drew, ran into Nina. And, when Drew was there walking up to thank her for her part in, helping Bailey and stuff like that, Nina got super defensive. Um, Smith is saying, "Oh, you don't have to sit there and worry about me. I didn't sit there and do this, that, and the third." And Drew's like, "Yo, I just came to sit there and thank you to, about you helping out Maxie and everything." But Drew does go in on her, and he calls her out for everything that she did. Um, Especially the part where Carly had to sit there and mind the business while she was kind of keeping Sonny hidden from the world, more or less. So he called her out, and Nina got defensive and was like, "Oh, I apologize for everything. I already been apologizing for that for so long." And it's one of those things where it's like, okay, yeah, you apologize for what you did. I mean, granted, you could have fixed that mistake a long time ago, but okay, you apologize for what you did. What about what you've been doing since then? You know, knowing that this guy is married, and you still always found a way to insert yourself and in Sonny's way, in Sonny's life, almost every chance that you got. Um, so the whole, I apologize enough for that. Pretty much, it's like, okay, well, what about what you're doing now? Doesn't really go anywhere. She kind of just walks off in the house or whatever, and that's pretty much about it. It was nice to sit there and see Scott for a little bit. I remember somebody was saying that he's like semi-retired or whatever, and just seeing him walk in, it was nice, but I also felt like this guy's literally just coming in for a check at this point. Like, he literally was. I felt like he didn't really have too much of a purpose there. Um, like I felt like Finn could have came over there and could have just did the exact same thing, talked about the boys. Um, I mean, Scott did give a new perspective, and that was him sniffing thinking maybe that Jake did it, but other than that, he didn't really do too much of anything except for just be there to collect the check. So cool, I guess. I'm not gonna lie, I can't really sit there and think about anything else that happened. I did this video like about 3 times, and if anyone watched Wine Art, there was a scene when Billy was in there trying to record, his first podcast, and he did the video, or he thought he did the video, or the podcast or whatever, and he realized it wasn't recorded. So he tried to sit there and do it again, and it's just like the first take was the best one, and every time he kept trying to do it after that, he just kept fumbling. That's exactly what ended up happening with me. So that was awesome. Anyway, with that being said, I'm gonna go. I want to thank you for watching. Be safe. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below, and I'll see you in the next video.